deceive you. I do have a nice little cold that has grasped my body and doesn't want to let go. So right now I'm stuck in my office by myself. Nobody wants to be around me, and I don't blame them. So if you hear the audio go quiet for a moment, that means I muted you because I'm probably going into a little small coughing fit. Although I will tell you that I've got my cough drops next to me. I've already unwrapped them, so you don't have to hear the little crinkle crinkle if I have to put one of those in my mouth. But I apologize if I have to do that, and it doesn't make things as nice as normal. I also want to thank all of you for having the patience to wait for us during our, quote, tax season. December was a little busier than we normally have, so I was unable to do any Tech Tuesdays in December, and as we know, January we always take off for our wonderful W-2 and 1099s. So thank you for being patient. I'm welcoming all of you back. I'm glad that you came back. I noticed that we have some new users on here today. Welcome. Anybody that has any users that you would like me to send the email directly to, please go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to add any names to our list. So before I begin, I also wanted to remind everybody that you are in a listen-only mode. Please, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them out in the questions section. I will try to answer the questions. I try to pay attention to that screen. It's actually on my other monitor, so sometimes I don't always see it right away once I get on a roll. But I will answer any questions. If I don't answer your questions, feel free to contact me right after the webinar. I'll be more than happy to assist you with whatever I didn't cover. I also, as a little reminder, those of you that we did do W-2s for, if you have not installed the 2015 tax table, we want to make sure that we get that done here pretty soon, although most of us don't hit that FICA max here in February, but some of us, we want to make sure that we get it in before some of our highly compensated people hit that, and then we don't have them taxed properly. So just quick reminder that if we haven't installed it, we want to get your 2015 tax table into the system. Okay, so that is all of our catch-up stuff. Let's go right into our topic day. This topic came directly from an end user that emailed me and said, hey, whatever happened to this menu item? I can't find it. And I said, well, click the More button. And the answer was, what More button? So that's what we were going to cover today, is the power of the More button. I kind of was going to do like a little Abbott and Costello thing, is what's the More button? Who's the More button? But then I thought probably the majority of you don't even know who Abbott and Costello are. If you don't, go out to Google and Google the Abbott and Costello Who's on First. It's a really nice, fun little thing to listen to, but maybe only people in my generation think it's funny. But, you can try it anyway. I know some of you are smiling right now. So let's go into inventory, and let's talk about what I am discussing here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up an inventory item. And we got a lot of information on this screen, but in the version previous to this, meaning the 3X version, we are now in the 4X version, okay? We had buttons on this screen that have disappeared. And you say, what buttons? Well, what we want to do is we want to click this button up here that says More. Some of us haven't even realized that that button's out there, but we're going to go ahead and click it. And these are all the buttons that have disappeared off of that main tab that we used to have. So what I want to do today is I want to go through these buttons in each module so that you can get a good, at least a taste of what you can do with these, and then actually might get some ideas flowing through you. You can throw me an email and say, hey, can we do a Tech Tuesday on, yada, yada. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So under the More button for inventory, we have this Vendors button. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Vendors button, and what you can do here is the system, no matter who you purchase this item from, will start keeping track of your history with this vendor, which is actually kind of cool. Because I can come in here and I can say, okay, I bought this from Container Corporation, This is my vendor item number, and this was my last cost with this vendor. Now you're going to see a lead time here. The lead time really pertains to the MRP module, but you can put a lead time in there as far as a visual, so you know this is what it normally takes to get from this, how long it takes to get from this vendor, but the lead time is actually used in the calculation with the MRP module. But what I also wanted to show you when we were on this screen is that I have this little asterisk here in this PV column, and you say, well, what's the PV column? Well, the PV means it's a primary vendor. And notice right here I say primary vendor. So this is the vendor that I normally purchase this item from. Well, okay, that's great, but what does that do for me? Well, if you're using the purchase order module, and if you're using the auto reorder method in the purchase order module, it will actually go to the primary vendor to try to automatically create a PO. So that might be something that you want to make sure that you have in your system, that this is the vendor that you normally buy from. Also down here at this bottom grid, when I'm in my vendors button here, it shows me my last receipt number. Now, if I click on this drill down, I actually can look at my receipt history, and I know that this is the invoice number for this item, and here is the purchase order number right here that I actually ordered this from. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. Just want to show you different ways of getting to information. Now, I know for some of you that don't have inventory, this is like, okay, but as you're in some of these screens, they may pertain to you in your other modules, so keep that in mind, okay? So that's our vendors button. Let's look at aliases. Aliases are really cool. Now, for a lot of you, you may not need aliases, but what are aliases? They are different numbers that maybe our vendor or our customer can use for the part number that may be different than ours. Also keep in mind, say for instance, you buy from your supplier, and you in your system have the exact same part number that your supplier has. But you don't want your customer to know that they can buy direct from that supplier. So you may want to set up an alias for the customer. So let's go ahead and pull that up here. And what I have is for this item number, my 1001 HON H252, my customer ABF has an item number, and we're going to call it ABF 1001. So in this situation, my customer is saying, hey, I want to see my part number on the sales order or on the invoice that you are sending me. And we may have the same situation from the vendor that you're purchasing from. So let me show you how that actually works. I'm going to go ahead and pull up sales order entry real quick. And I'm going to put a new order in. And I'm going to pull up my customer, ABF, and I'm going to go to lines. Now their number was ABF 1001. Now once I hit enter, I want you to see what happens. Oh, look, it changed to my part number. So the system knew to go out to the alias table, find that part number for that customer, and then put my part number in on this screen so the people out in my warehouse know what to pick. Okay? This can go do the same thing for purchase orders. So that's actually pretty cool. And we can have that part number print on your sales order, your pick sheet, your packing list, your invoice, whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up about the customers. So keep in mind too, once again, we can have different alias numbers, general, meaning it applies, it doesn't matter if it's a vendor or a customer. If I got this alias number in here, it's a general alias number, I can use it both in purchase order and sales order, or I can do it by customer, or I can do it by vendor. Okay, so keep that in mind. Kind of a cool thing. Won't apply to everybody, but sometimes we can also use it, for website stuff. So get the cool juices going there in the brain. Alternate items. What are alternate items? Once again, a lot of us cannot use these, but these are items that you will possibly suggest to your customer, because as you know, when you're doing an order, if you have the system set up to check for quantity on hand, you may not have enough quantity, but you can suggest to the customer, hey, I'm out of the H252, but I can give you the H252LK if you're willing to substitute. So alternates are basically used for substitutes, okay? Reorder, another nice, cool screen here. This is where you can enter your reorder points. Now keep in mind, I have multiple warehouses, so I can have different reorder methods, and there are 3 different reorder methods, but I can have different reorder methods for each warehouse, but I can only have 1 bin location per warehouse. Now that's kind of a drag for some of us who have inventory because we do have it in multiple bins. If it is something that it's really causing you problems because we only have 1 bin location, there is a third-party enhancement that will do multiple bins. It's not for the faint of heart, but you can set it up. You can set up the different bins, and you can have items that have a staging bin or receiving bin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or maybe they're just in multiple bins in the warehouse. But that is a third-party enhancement. Right now we only have 1. So you can set up your reorder points in here on the reorder maintenance screen, or you can go to this quantity tab, and you can click on the reorder icon right here, which is the same as going to this button there. Okay, pricing. So pricing is very confusing for a lot of people, okay? What you can do in here is you can set up different price levels for your items. This is what you're going to sell these for. This happens to be a price level 1, and it does a price discount. So based on quantities, the discount goes up, okay? Now, I can do that. What happens with a price level is that price level is then assigned to a customer, and a customer can only have 1 price level, okay? Some people don't like the 1, 2, 3. You may like an R for retail, C for contractors, W for wholesale, et cetera. So you want to make your price levels what makes sense to you. You can also do a customer price schedule, and what you can do in here is you can actually tell the system, okay, for this particular customer, I'm going to do a price discount, and then you can come up with a new price. So you can get pretty elaborate with your pricing. I'm not going to go into big detail there, but the pricing button is where you can set individual pricing for your items that you are selling. Price lookup, this is used quite often in people who are using sales order, where I may want to come in here and say, okay, well, for this customer, if I buy 100 of these, what is my price going to be? So if you have multi-tiered pricing set up, we can come in here and determine what their price is going to be. Maybe the customer's on the phone and you're trying to convince them, hey, if you buy 1 more of these or 10 more of these, your price is going to go down by X dollar amount, okay? Now, the next button is the sales promotion button. Now, this one is actually interesting. What I have had clients use this button for in the past is to blow out inventory. Maybe we want to apply a sales promotion to particular items, and then during this time frame, and I apologize for the dates on that, but during the time frame, we can do a discount percentage, we can do a sale price, but we can apply it to those particular items, and maybe we just want to get rid of them so that when the customer buys it, we can, hey, look, it's you're going to get X dollars or 50% off or whatever. I do caution you because there was one instance a long time ago where I actually had somebody set up a promotion and accidentally applied it to every single item in their inventory. So every single item, when they went to put it on a sales order, was coming up as $8.95. They didn't realize that they had done the promotion. So a lot of times when people call us and they say, this is coming up with the wrong price and I don't understand why, my first thing that I go to is this pricing button to see, hey, have you set up any particular pricing schedules in here, but then the next button I go to is always sales promotions to see if somebody accidentally set up a sales promotion, or maybe they don't want it going on anymore. Okay, so keep that in mind. Sales promotions are really good for blowing out inventory. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a lot number item, because the next button on our list here is lot and serial. So with this, I can actually see history on my lot numbers and what's happened. Anything that says PO are obviously from purchase orders, and these are inventory issues. Here is a sales order invoice, and I could actually drill down on this invoice and bring up the original invoice that this item was sold on for this lot number. So I can go to lines and I can see who it was sold to, when it was sold, and what else that they purchased. So that's kind of a cool way of being able to get to information through inventory without having to go. I didn't have to go back to customer ABF and try to find this invoice number. I could just drill down on it right from inventory. So what we're trying to do is save you steps in going from module to module, and what was that number again? And to be able to drill. So keep that in mind whenever you're in a module, that you can drill on most of these transactions. Okay, so the last item on here, this IT item, that is for the people who are using the e-business module. That's a internet module that is from Sage, although we do have quite a few people who have shopping carts and they're not using this. So most often, most of you are not even going to touch that menu item. Okay? So that's a few things in inventory. Let's talk about a few things in accounts payable now. All right. So once again, I'm going to come into accounts payable, and I have the More button. So I'm going to click on that button, and what are my options here? Well, I have contacts first. So let's go ahead and click on contacts. It used to be a menu item, and some of us use contacts and some of us don't. But what I want to remind you of is that contacts, this field, this contact code field, is exactly that. It is a code. So if you put in John, that's John's name, but that is actually his code. Okay? So I have several contacts in here, and you can do as many contacts as you like for a vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Leo. And Leo maybe he has a different address. Maybe, some of my contacts may have a different address. Maybe I got somebody I purchased from, a manager I talked to over there, maybe the owner of the company. But there may be reasons that I have different contacts in here. So here is Leo's address. I have his email address, and then I can take some notes in here. Maybe there's things about Leo that I want to remind myself of whenever I'm in here, or my last conversation, etc. Now, the next thing you're going to say, oh, can I print that out? Can I sort it? Can I whatever? It's just a big text field, so keep that in mind that this is probably not, where you want to do your CRM from, but, the notes field is available. You have different salutations, and of course different fax numbers, and although we're getting away from faxes now, right? But telephone numbers and so forth. And just like with any other screen, if you have custom office, maybe you want to change this telephone to read cell phone number. You can use custom office to change the name of the field. But one thing I do want to point out here is this primary check mark. That means that Leo is our primary contact. So if I look back here on my vendor screen, I can see that Leo is the primary contact. Now, we have people who call and say, okay, that's great, but how do I change my primary contact? I can't get it's grayed out. I can't get the checkbox off. Well, it's actually very simple. All you really have to do is come to this primary contact field here, and we choose Carl. And now, when we go to the contacts, we save our change, and we pull up Carl, and Carl is now our primary contact. So it's that easy to change the primary contact. Okay, so what else do we have under the More button? Well, we have purchase address. Okay, once again, we have a location code. What is purchase address used for? A lot of us don't use it. If we have a situation where I can purchase this, maybe Airway Properties has more than one location, and I want to purchase it from their LA location versus their San Francisco location, I can set up a purchase address code, and I can then, on my purchase order, designate that code, and my PO will actually have the correct vendor address on it for where I'm sending my purchase order. Now, notice that the location code does have a contact name, so if you have a primary contact for that location code, you want to put that there. And it also has a tax schedule. Now, I'm going to tell you that probably 99% of you do not do tax in accounts payable. That is not unusual. Don't be upset about it. Most of us do not track our sales tax and accounts payable. We track it in, through our accounts receivable and sales order. So anyway, if you have sales tax turned on, some of us have it turned on accidentally. And you say, well, how do I have it turned on accidentally? Well, because I'm going to tell you, back in the 3X version, about 3.3, they actually turned on sales tax for accounts payable and made it a default in the system. So all of a sudden, everybody had sales tax turned on for payables. And so what we had to do is we had to go around and, make this non-tax. So if you have it turned on and you don't want it turned on, let us know. We'll clear out the history and then turn the flag off, and then you won't be bothered by this pesky little sales tax schedule anymore. Okay? All right. So now this is also a favorite, absolute favorite of mine in accounts payable, remit to address. Occasionally, you have a situation where you have to send the check to a different address that is in the vendor file. Back in the day when we used to do factoring of receivables and things like that, we had a lot of things that times that we needed that separate address. This actually works sometimes with people who do 1099s. Keep this in mind, though. The address, I believe, that the 1099 pulls is going to be this main address here, and not the remit to address. So keep that in mind when you're setting up vendors. But if you have to send your check to a different address than what you have in here, this is where you do it, in the remit to address. So then you say, well, how does the system know? Well, if I go to check printing and electronic payment, which I just happen to put that menu item up there for myself, notice that we have a field right here called print remit to information. If I check this on, the system will automatically pull the remit to addresses instead of that address that we see on the main tab of the vendor. Now, where does this get a little bit hairy sometimes? Well, we don't realize. Sometimes we don't realize that somebody has checked this box, or maybe we needed to do it. And honestly, if you need to do it for one person, you have to do it for all, okay? So if we've checked this box and maybe somebody checked it 2 years ago and we didn't realize it, well, someone comes in here and they change the address here on the main tab, and then they print the check, and the check's still going to the wrong address. Well, why? Because that check box is checked to use the remit to. So you have to remember to come here and change the address here. Or if you don't need to use those remit to addresses anymore, take the check box off, and then it'll work perfectly fine for you. But it's actually a kind of nice feature to have to be able to use a secondary address. Also, under your vendor maintenance, More button, we have an items. Now, maybe you don't want your user in inventory, but you don't mind them here in looking at the items in vendor maintenance. Now you notice I don't have any vendors because this vendor is for my rent. So I'm going to actually pull up a vendor that I purchase inventory items from. So here I am back in inventory, and I need to point out this button will always hold the last menu item that you were in. So now I'm going to click that My Items button again, and I've got two different icons here. I have a flashlight, which will look up every item that I have in my system. Okay, it doesn't mean that I purchased that item from this vendor, but the flashlight will show me what I purchased and when. So that's kind of neat. I prefer using the flashlight almost all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double click on that. So now I can see by period what I purchased from this vendor, or this item from this vendor. And I, got 1,000 of these in. Now I can either double click or I can use this icon here, which is my transaction history icon. So I'm going to click on that, and then here I am. Oh, I'm in my receipt history. This is coming out of purchase order. Well, isn't that cool? I can see that I received it on, my transaction date was 6/1. It was from the purchase order. This is my receipt of goods number. If I wanted to drill even more, I could double click, and oh my goodness, now I'm actually into the receipt. Here's my PO number, and I can look and see what other lines, if any, were on that purchase order. Once again, never leaving accounts payable. I'm in vendor maintenance, and I'm looking at stuff not only that's in my item, my inventory file, but I'm also looking at stuff it's in my PO receipt file. Now, some of you are going, yay, and some of you are going, whoa, whoa, I don't want people to be able to do that. Well, if they do not have the security clearance to do it, they don't have the security rights, they will not be able to drill down. So I did want to mention that. Also from here, look, see what we've got. Aha, we have the alias button. So I'm going to click on the alias button, and then I can get into that alias table and see, for Stevens Supply, I've been going a little crazy, but Stevens Supply actually has multiple items that has different alias numbers. And in their case, we're actually using the same alias numbers, which is kind of worthless, but this actually would be a good one. But it would show me, for Stevens Supply, all the items that have an alias set up for this particular vendor. So that's kind of neat. And pricing. Vendor pricing. A lot of us think about our customers, that these are vendor pricing. And for those of you who don't have inventory, obviously this is not going to work for you because this table does not pull miscellaneous items, maybe miscellaneous item codes that we have set up. This is particularly using the inventory items, but you may have special pricing set up with your vendor, and you can set this pricing up right here. You don't have to go back to inventory and go to that pricing button, choose your vendor, et cetera, et cetera. We can set it up right from vendor maintenance, which is kind of neat, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go out of here, and that is our menu items in accounts payable. All right, so now let's head over to my other favorite place, accounts receivable. And let's go into customer maintenance. So once again, I'm going to pull up ABF, my favorite customer. I do have a pop-up menu, or memo, which we can turn on and off in various places. Maybe I don't want it in customer maintenance, but I want it when I'm entering a sales order or an invoice. So keep that in mind when you're doing memos, that you can control the pop-up and who sees them. With that in mind, don't go too crazy on your memos. Don't have 8 or 10 memos that pop up, because I'm going to tell you right now, people stop reading them. I know it drives me nuts. People stop reading them. So, be cautious with your memos. So let's go ahead and click the More button here. And what do I have? I have a lot of buttons in Accounts Receivable. So let's go ahead and take a look at our Contacts button. Once again, I can have multiple contacts. And I'm going to pull up Artie. Artie happens to be my primary. Looks identical to what we saw in accounts payable. And if I wanted to change Artie from being my primary, I just change it right there. Okay? And then he can have his own email identical to what we saw in accounts payable. And this, too, is for the e-business module, the Sage e-business module. 99.9% of the time, we will not, have anything in there, because I don't think I have any clients that own the Sage e-business one. I do have a question that popped up here. Can you have it not pop up in shipping data entry, but pop up in sales order entry? I'm going to think, Laura, the answer to that is yes, but I'm going to have to check to be sure. So I will test that right after our session, and if I am correct, I'll show you the screenshot of where you can change it. Okay, so I'll let you know on that one. Okay, so that's contact maintenance. Now keep in mind, the contact codes are usually the primary contacts usually what's pulled on the purchase order, sales order, etc. So you want to be careful of who you pull for your primary contact. Now, just like we saw in accounts payable, items, very awesome. You have the same thing. You click on this lookup, it's every item. Doesn't matter if they own it or excuse me, have purchased it or not. So that's why I like to use the flashlight. Flashlight always gives us what they've purchased. And anytime you have a lookup like this, you can sort it just by clicking on that column, name, okay? So let's say, for instance, I'm going to pull up this item here. And, you know, my dad is old. I understand that. But let's look at, you know, in May, it says I purchased 62 of these. Once again, you know, it shows me by month. I can drill down. I could double-click. I can use my transaction zoom. And, oh, goodness, okay, here we've got some transactions. It shows me the quantity, the unit cost, the extension, the item cost. I can double-click on it. And I am now in the invoice. Cool, like really cool. So I can see what else they purchased on that invoice. And I could even reprint the invoice if I wanted to by clicking my little printer button here. I can actually reprint the customer's invoice, which is really awesome. So I'm able to get to this history from the customer without having to go back to the item and be drilling in the item on the item history tab to figure out, okay, who bought it, who didn't, you know, how often is my customer buying this, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty awesome being able to do that. Now, I wanted to point out here too, we also have the alias button here. So for this customer, these are the alias items that they've set up. And here's that ABF 1001 that I had shown you, you know, a few minutes ago. Also, you can handle their pricing in here. So if, you know, you want to give them a price discount amount of, you know, $2, so now their new unit price is going to be $82 every time that they purchase this item. Now, yes, you can set up individual pricing for your customers without using price levels, but if you have a couple thousand customers, oh my gosh, whoever the person is who has to enter your pricing when your pricing changes, they're going to be so mad, because it's going to take them forever to do. Now, also, with that being said, if you have the Visual Integrator module, quite often if you can supply us with a file, we can import your special pricing, and that saves a lot. Still, somebody's got to key it into, you know, a spreadsheet, but a lot of times it's a lot easier to get us to import the pricing than it is to key it for every single item that you have. Okay, now, ship to address. Really important button here, people who have sales order module. Very important stuff on this screen that I want to point out. Okay, once again, it is a code. I use one too. What I suggest to people, they say, well, what type of code should I use for a location code? What I like to do is the last 4 digits of the zip code, because most often you won't get duplicates, and it's easy to identify that way. So that might be something, maybe last 4 digits of the phone number, you know, something that is going to clue the person in who is having to enter the order that this is the correct ship-to address that I should be pulling. Now, with that being said, you've got your 3 lines of address, you've got your zip code, you've got your phone number, and an email address that can be associated to it. You actually have a contact you can associate to this location code. You also have a warehouse. Okay, so if I put a warehouse in here and I do a sales order using this ship code, it should automatically use this warehouse as the default. So that, you know, for some of us helps make errors not happen of somebody choosing the wrong warehouse. You also have a salesperson. So I may be responsible for location code number 2, but Jim Kentley is responsible for location code 1. So we are sharing this customer. So you know that you have a default salesperson here on the main tab, right? But in your ship to locations, you can have individual salespeople designated, and they can be different than the salesperson on the main tab, which is Pretty cool. But the thing that I really wanted to point out, and this is where the mistake usually happens, is your tax schedule. If you are collecting sales tax, every ship-to location is assigned a sales tax code, or sales tax schedule. So if I have a Missouri location for a customer and I have an Arkansas location for a customer, I am going to have two different sales tax schedules. So you want to make sure that your sales tax schedules are correct, or you are going to be charging the wrong rate to the customer. And if that changes, if the rate changes, you want to make sure you're changing the correct schedule, i.e. also the correct sales tax code. But that's very important. And actually, each location can have its own exemption number also. Okay? Keep that in mind. Really important. Get that call all the time. It's like, why is this taxing wrong? Okay, now, IT customer, I've kind of beaten that one, with a stick. You guys aren't going to be using that. So we're going to go to Invoice Inquiry next. Now keep in mind, all these used to be buttons on the screen. Now they're kind of hidden. So we have it. You say, well, why would I want to go here? I got invoices here. Well, this screen are for your invoices in your setup options of accounts receivable. It says number of days to retain paid invoices. Now, paid, it also means open, but you can only retain them for 999 days is the longest amount of time that you can retain invoices on this screen. So after 999 days, when you're doing period end, they start to fall off. But here in your Invoice Inquiry screen, they never fall off. Never, ever, ever, unless you manually purge them. So all of your customer invoices, can still be out here. So, maybe I want to double click on this one. I can drill down to this invoice. This happens to be a credit memo. I know, I got negative amounts, but it also shows me right here it's a credit memo. And this was part of an RMA. Well, what's an RMA? That's our Return Material Authorization module. And I can actually drill down on my RMA and see, oh, look, here's my RMA number. I can open that, drill down, once again, not leaving AR, and go here and see what the customer returned and why. It was defective. We're doing a replacement, and I'm scrapping the item. So really neat to be able to see these invoices. They will, like I said, stay out here forever until they are purged. Now, I have actually gone into clients and had situations where I'll have 600,000-700,000 invoices out in this history file. Now, can you keep that out there? Sure. But it does slow down processing. When you're trying to look up something in the history file, it'll get really slow. So what I recommend to people is, create an archive company and then purge off all but maybe the last 3 years and then keep that in your history file, which that might be a great Tech Tuesday of how to purge out old stuff. But that's really neat to know that you have those invoices out there forever and ever. We do have an RMA inquiry. If you don't own the module, you won't see it. You just saw me drill down on it without actually going into the menu item, so I'm not going to drill again, but that's what that is for. And then we have something called Bill to Sold to. Now, I'm going to go out of this customer, and I want you to put your thinking caps on and tell me whether or not this could apply to you. What Bill to Sold to is used for is what we call national accounts. Okay? National accounts means, and I've labeled my customers this way to make it easier to visualize in our mind. We have a parent company that is responsible for paying our invoices. Now, think about this as you're on your customer side, right? I am the child company, and this child company is buying from me ABC Distribution Services, and this child company, I'm going to do a sales order for the child. I am going to invoice the child, but the invoice is going to end up getting billed to the parent. Okay? National accounts. I'll let you chew on that one a little bit. You may not. Some of us, nah, we'll never have that. I had it with a client years ago, grocery store. They did Deerbergs. And every Deerberg location was a customer. But the main, all the invoices had to go to the main location, and the main location paid all the invoices. So it makes it easier when you're doing cash receipts to know where that goes to. Okay? So that's something for you to think about. Now, that's all our buttons in receivables, payables, and inventory. I want you to think about anything that maybe you want to take a deeper dive into, and let me know if you want to go further on any of those. Today we're going to have a bonus round. It may or may not pertain to a lot of you, but this came up the other day. Bonus round, I'm going to show you how to add the bin location to your item maintenance or inquiry. Okay, if I come out here and I right-click and I go to Customizer, meaning we have to own Custom Office, I can do this for all users and all companies, and I'm going to click OK. So what's going to come up here is that screen that we were just looking at. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to go to Format. And you'll notice that my bin location is not on here. So I'm going to click on Add, and there's that bin location I want. I'm going to hit Select, and then it's at the bottom. I don't want it at the bottom, so I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to update it, or move it up, excuse me, till I get to the top. And I want it right next to my warehouse. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click on Save, and I'm going to say OK. Now keep this in mind. I'm showing you this to show you, kind of get in your mind different things that you can do with your screens here. So now I'm going to go to Item Inquiry. I'm going to pull up an item, and voila, my bin location now shows on my main tab. And I don't have to go to a quantity, and I don't have to go to my reorder to see my bin location. I can now see it on my main tab when I look at an item. So that is your bonus round for Custom Office and how you can make changes to your screen. We can change the titles. We can add fields and move fields around. But that is all I have for you today. If any of you have any ideas of what you would like to do in the next Tech Tuesday, please feel free to email me. I would love to cover some new items, or maybe we need to revisit some old. But that's all I've got. I wish you all a great and wonderful day, and hopefully you'll be able to skip this cold that I have and not get it. I know you're not going to get it through the phone, but it won't be my fault. But hopefully you all stay healthy and enjoy this past weekend where we had great weather. Otherwise, we will see you next Tuesday, or excuse me, Tuesday after next, and hopefully have a great and wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.